welcome back. Now today I'm going to try and hopefully do a little bit of colouring, and I thought I'd give it a go in the Zodiac book that Colorya very kindly sent me, and I'm going to try and use their pencils in the main as well to do this with. So yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it, because it's kind of a budget set of pencils and a book that hopefully should work really nicely with them. I don't crush my glasses with them over there. So I've decided to give it a go on this Libra page. There was a few pages in here that if you watched my last video, you'll see that I was quite interested in, and they definitely appealed. So I think I'm going to give this Libra lady with a quite strange skirt that goes into this kind of patterned section, and obviously she's got a little scales that go with it. I have a feeling they're called something else in the star sign, but I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments at some point. But yeah, so I'm going to give her a go. I've not kind of done any research and thought, oh, I'll look up what kind of colours would be appropriate. I'm just going to go with what interests me. In the main, I'm going to use all my Colorya pencils because I've not really tried them out a huge amount. So I do want to see myself how will they work. The only extra thing that I'm probably going to use is a white luminance. I use my luminance for obviously lightning colours, obviously, but I quite often use them for blending as well, so I will probably use that. Mine's getting a bit short, hence why it's on an extender, but so far I might do something else in the very background because I'm not a great lover of colouring background blanks bits, and this one does have a little bit of blank space around it, but certainly for the colour pencil work I'm going to try and stick with this set just to see what they can do, really, how they work on the paper, how they layer when you really are starting to build up quite a bit of colour. So yeah, I'm just going to give it a go, see how we go. I don't know how well I'm going to be at talking whilst I'm doing this. I'm not a great big chatter, really. It's not me doing a lot of chatting, which is one of the reasons I've kind of not done a huge amount of colour and chat or colour along or that kind of video. I know quite a few people have asked me for those kind of videos, and it's been in my mind certainly to give it a go, and yeah, I keep checking it out because I'm like, I haven't got some great life story or something amazing that I've done today that I could tell you. So yeah, I may go quiet at some point. Sorry in advance if I just end up sitting here colouring. So colours wise, again, I'm not really a planner. I kind of pick colours I feel like using. So I've got out my, if my camera wants to focus, is it going to focus? It's raspberry anyway, 567. Just doesn't want to focus today. Hello. See if I can wake it up to focusing. Oh, there we go. So I've got raspberry 567. I've got a kind of medium red, so scarlet red 634, and I've got peony 527. So I'm going to give these a go on some of this bodice section. We'll see how we go. I don't know. Now it's not focusing on the bottom bit. Let's see if I can pop it that. There we go. So I'm going to give it a go on these. But like I say, I'm not a great planner when it comes to colours. I know a lot of people spend a great bit of time talking about, oh, what was your combinations, and do you write them down, and those kind of things, really. And I'll be honest, I very rarely write down any even what pencils I've used, if I'm totally honest, let alone what combinations of colours. I certainly don't practice them, I'll be totally honest. I go with what looks right, like I've just literally done then. I had no great open plan for what I was going to do with this drawing. I just go with what feels right with me at the time. I don't find colour difficult, if that makes sense. It kind of makes sense in my brain when I've looked at it. I can kind of see what I generally want with it, and quite often with an image, normally when I look at an image I can kind of see what I want to do with it, where I want to go with it in terms of colour and colour palette. I don't, even though I have a big swatch book, you know, obviously I've shown my swatch book quite often, I don't really refer to it when I'm actually colouring. I tend to just go with the colours in my hand at the time that kind of feel right to me at that moment, really. doesn't sound very organised, and obviously not something I could share a technique with, really. I just kind of go with what feels right as I'm doing it. And that's as far as I've got in terms of planning what I'm going to do with this lovely Libra lady that's on my page at the moment. So all I'm consciously doing at the moment is, obviously a bodice like this is a curved shape, so I suppose I'm thinking, right, well, I'm going to do my light sourcing on this person and all this scene as though the light's kind of in front of her in this kind of space. So I'm going to have a lighter area coming up this side of the body, but as the sides go away from that light source, I'm having it darker here and here, really. So obviously I put my very dark, the raspberry, here on the side, and I'm going to layer some raspberry down here as well. I just wanted a lighter base of this colour first, because I think it is a little bit going to be a little bit lighter as her body's kind of facing towards me a little bit from this angle, if that makes any sense. It kind of makes sense in my head. I'm not sure whether I always communicate it particularly well, really. But these colours are building quite nicely, and I'm going to layer some of this darker raspberry over the top here, just to really knock this side of this lady back a little bit, so it feels like it's a slightly more curved shape, but I don't want it to go too dark in this area. I wanted that to be the kind of darkest section. Like I said on the video, really, these pencils they do feel quite smooth on this paper. It is quite a pleasant sensation. It doesn't feel you don't have to press on really hard onto it, and the colour does go down quite nicely, really, on the surface. And I do like that you can layer them. I don't love building up loads and loads of layers myself personally, but I think if you want to get some dimension into the things you're colouring, you kind of do need to layer a little bit, I think, to build that dimension into the shape, just so you can create shadow and just a bit of tone, really, to build the shape and make it a more interesting proposition. I think one thing I have realised quite about filming myself colouring, I do a lot of pencil work, and I do wonder how interesting this is going to be for somebody to watch, of me literally just laying coloured pencil down. I think it's not going to make for a particularly interesting video, but I also realised, when I've thought about doing videos like this before myself, I turn my book quite a lot. So trying to keep this book so that it's still vertical for you watching I'm going to find that quite difficult, and I might at times turn it without really realising that I've just done it. So sorry if at some point my lady is upside down or on the side, or but rather than kind of doing some strange hand contortion, I might end up doing that. I'm consciously trying not to do it at the minute, but once I get a bit more carried away with the colouring, I'm not sure I'll be able to keep it up for a huge amount of time. Any large areas I probably will fill bits in and maybe come back to the video when I've filled particular sections in a little bit, if I think that's getting very repetitive now. So I've kind of got some sections that I've started to get the darkest section in, so I'm going to kind of bring over just a lighter layer of some of this, what's it called, scarlet red, and then I'm going to give the pink a little bit of a go to get hopefully a lighter section in this area. I just need a little bit of dark under there, I think, first. I'm filming this pretty much straight away after I just did the little review and show of both these products really. So I'm quite interested to see what people think about both these products really. So far I'm quite enjoying them really. Pencils I always enjoy. If I had to pick any kind of art medium, if somebody said, I don't know why they would, but if someone said, oh right, you can only have one type of art supply, that's it, you can't have any more colour pencils, that would be it for me. I've got to be honest, most of my colourings that I show at the end of the month, they are generally 3/4 mainly colour pencils. I think for me it's about the precision of them, and I suppose I am a bit of a control freak as well. I do like the control that comes with a coloured pencil. Where you put your pencil is where you get the mark. How much pressure you add obviously gives you more control again really on how dark or light your colour is, in a way that even with the best will in the world, no matter how talented you are with your watercolour, it's just not, well, I don't find it as easy to do as it is with coloured pencil. Maybe I am a bit of a control freak. Can't help it, sorry. But yeah, I like the precision of coloured pencil, so even though I have quite a lot of colour pencils, you know, I do enjoy adding to my colour pencil collection. They are my favourite. I just really enjoy it. Really enjoy the texture of them on the page. How's that looking? It's not too bad, is it? So you kind of get the impression of what I'm aiming for, that you've got here, you've got this darker section, softens off into highlight, and then falls away back to the dark area, which hopefully gives a more kind of curved feeling to a body. So I'm going to do the same along this top section here, but we've got a section here where we need to make a decision about whether I'm going to carry this on. That obviously goes underneath the armpit. Is this a piece of hair that's coming down though? That's what I'm wondering, because I think this is a bit of hair. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll just draw in a line there, like a hair is going off down into that area, so that then I know I can just darken off that little bit there. Obviously, because it's a breast area, it complicates our light pattern, because obviously you've got a curved shape there that we need to represent. So I've just used a little bit of the raspberry down in that section as well, and now I'm just going to use the scarlet red just softly, so that I can blend it out with the pink that I can't remember what it's called. What's it called? Peony. Peony. Lovely. And the same on this side, just want to soften the edge of that red, so that hopefully we'll get a seamless transition between the peony and the red. I'm only using the peony like super soft, really, because I don't want to see the white of the paper, but I still want to keep the brightness of the paper coming through, so that you kind of get, hopefully, a three-dimensional shape to her body there. And then once you've kind of got the shape so it's working, you can continue to build and add more of the tones you've been working with. So I can darken. I don't want the dark to be too far into her body, but I can just keep darkening these sections to make sure it really is. Now obviously you've got a kind of piece of trim that's going across her body here, so I'm just going to use dark section, almost like it's casting a little bit of a shadow onto the fabric below. Don't want a wide line, but I just want to give us some kind of sensation that the fabric is raised one above the other, so you'd get a shadow below where this little bit of trim is going across her body. Don't have to, just how I've decided to add it in. And I might do the same just at the top a little bit as well, like it's a complete raised piece. And I'm going to do the same for this kind of strange bit of trim at the other end as well. This is where really I should put my glasses on, so I don't go over the line. But for some reason I don't want to wear my glasses. I prefer working without them. They're a fairly new thing, my glasses, really, for detail. But yeah, I'm still avoiding wearing them if I can. I'll pay for it tomorrow though. My right eye will be complaining. So I think we're kind of got that filled in. And they've not been too crumbly, these little pencils. It's pretty smooth looking, and it's quite a nice finish, I think. Would help if my camera would focus. It's not behaving today, my camera. So you can kind of see the shadow. I've just added a little bit more when it's close up, and a tiny bit where I've gone out the lines, just looking at that on my camera. So let's get it to focus again. There we go. So now I need to decide down here which bits are going to be this red background and which bits are going to be trim. I'll stop doing that rolling. So same again, but the shape of the body is changing slightly here, so I don't want to bring this dark section over because we've kind of got this highlight running down here, so do need to be careful how much of this I bring across into the bodice shape. Let's have a look. I often find out, it sounds ridiculous, I colour a bit and then change my view a little bit, so I kind of look at it, colour a little bit, then move my head away from it to kind of see it from a different distance, and I find that kind of makes sense to my brain a little bit more about whether that's in the right place or not, or whether I need to bring it further across. But in this case, I think I'm just going to go with that and see how it looks in a second. The other thing is obviously just add your layers quite gently to begin with. So if there's a bit that, right, I decide, oh no, actually that needs to be a lot lighter there, I can take it out and try something else over the top. If obviously you go really dark pretty quick, then it's pretty difficult to change a huge amount of that, because you don't get really dark marks out of most types of paper too easily. So yeah, that's kind of looking what I was aiming for, I think. Apologies if you can hear any background noise. My husband races in some online leagues. They race cars. He has and he's in a few leagues, and he's racing tonight in one of his leagues. So obviously they're talking to each other on Discord and various other things. So just occasionally you might hear exchanged voices when perhaps something's not quite going right with their racing and someone's hit him or he's hit somebody else. But yeah, we all have these things we do for pleasure, don't we? And racing is one of his things at the moment, so hopefully you can't. I've shut the door in between, and my little dog is fast asleep behind me on her mat. Not too impressed at me still chatting to myself in a room. He occasionally keeps looking at me like, you're mad, can you shut up? Talking. Okay, so I've kind of got the colour in on this bottom bit, and now I've got a better idea of where I want the highlight. I'm going to darken off the rest of this to match what we've done on the other side, really. I'm going to continue to build the colour there. I'm just doing it gradually, really, and having a look at it as we go. Same on this side, just going to build the colour slowly. I'll start to get that shape to be similar. Then I'm back on the scarlet mid colour. Must admit, I am liking how smooth the texture is as you're building them, and so far I've not noticed that I'm getting any kind of wax build up at the moment. It seems pretty happy to keep building and layering over itself, so pleased with that, because for something like this where you're building up this kind of corset shape, you're kind of working with a rounded form, so you need to keep working the tone in to get this kind of shape that you're building. Just having a look at it myself now, see how happy I am. It just kind of feels maybe a little bit darker here. I think looking at my camera in terms of the colour of these pencils, I think they're actually a little bit warmer in colour tone than they look on my camera feed. They are slightly stronger colours, I think, than it looks when I look at the output it's giving at the moment, but gives you an idea of where we're at. So yeah, so kind of, it's probably not going to focus, maybe it will. So we've got the kind of bodice in. I'm going to do the same with the trim on this bottom bit. I'm just going to I can get my eyes to focus, never mind my camera. I'm just going to add a little bit of shading underneath this trim so it lifts it off the surface a little bit. And the same for the bottom bit. You can see when I'm concentrating because I really can't talk when I'm trying to concentrate what I'm doing. I really should put the glasses on, but there you go. Okay, so we've got the kind of bodice as down, and I'm going to stash my 3 pencils there for now on what I've used, and then obviously I've got to make some decision about what I'm going to use in terms of trim. And I kind of don't want to do green because we've got kind of leaves and tendrils and things going there, so I kind of want something that feels different from green. What am I going to do? Purple. Purple is my general go-to, but do I want to do a purple? I'm thinking this is quite a nice tone, but I just would like to see what it's exactly like. So, might be a bit close. Not being very decisive now, sorry. Sometimes I do have this problem with myself. I think I'm going to go oranges. So we've got orange, and I might even go super light with creamy beige. I was thinking I might put my other light on there. That's a better reflection of the colour a little bit. Does that help? A little bit. Okay, so the ones I've plumped out for the trim are bright orange 737. I've got coral 715, and I've got creamy beige 112. As you've just seen, I've not tested them. I've just pulled them out literally. Just looking at the tips really to see. I wanted a range of tones, so I've gone dark, medium, light. I could have maybe used, it has what's this other one? It has a nice apricot in, which possibly might be a better choice than the beige, but I might use either of those. I'll keep them handy for the minute for the trim. But the trim I'm going to work exactly the same, so we know we've got this kind of light panel here up the side now, so I'm going to do the same. So dark, medium, light, dark, medium, light as you're getting up here, and then you've got a dark section just in the middle there, but I'm going to do it pretty much the same. You've got 2 bits of trim here. We've got a little thin line, and then we've got this more curved kind of lacy form. So I'm thinking at the moment I'm going to do the orange in these 2, see how that looks, and then make a decision about these kind of more blobby looking trims. But I'll play it by ear, see how it goes. It's a colouring. We don't need to worry about it too much, do we? It's only for pleasure. So this is the mid one, the coral. And because this is a trim, and it feels like quite a curved form, I have swapped how I'm layering the colours down to a more of a scumbly movement, because I wanted this fabric to feel slightly differently. And even though I'm not deliberately making lots of marks. It will still feel slightly different because you've applied the pencil slightly differently. So I've gone with the apricot. Don't know why. It's the one my brain picked up when I looked over there. I think that one's working quite nicely with the orange that's there. I'm not going to go any further until I get this darker side in, I think. So I'm putting the shadow, the darkest bits in first, and then just trying to soften the edge of it a little bit so that the next colour in, which one was it? It's that one, it's coral, blends quite nicely into what we've already got. And I think any bits that I can see one layer isn't enough, obviously you can just keep adding more layers to build it. And then I'm going to swap to the back to the apricot, wasn't it? Obviously any pencils you've got that you know will layer, you could do this exact same technique with if you haven't got these Colorya ones. A lot of pencils will layer. My Brutes will layer, my Luminance will layer, Polys will layer. Depends what you've got, depends what you're using. All of those would work well on these papers out of this book. Now I'm kind of thinking, because this feels like it's little lumpy bumpy shapes, I'm half thinking I might even use a little bit of one of the reds just to add a little bit of shadow in these shapes to make it feel like they're a bit more curved, like it's layered slightly, just extending the line a little bit. That should be enough. That was, what was it, rose red, 628, 628. Pop it back in there. See, this is what I'm like though, I end up leaving it everywhere. Leaving pet before I know it. I've done a tiny bit on a drawing, and then I've got a desk literally full of loose pencils that because I don't write it down, I'm like, oh, I can't believe that set that I just put over there, because that was my bodice colours. And you never know, I might need those bodice colours yet. It would make far more sense if I actually wrote it down as I was doing it. But sometimes I don't. Most of the time I don't. Okay, so we've got a bit of trim in. I've gone a little bit darker than I wanted in that bit. Excuse me, reaching over for my little, this is, I'm sure you've seen them, it's a little Tombow Mono Zero rubber. And they just have these tiny little, just let me clean it off a little bit because it was a bit dirty on the end. They have these little tiny nibs on the end. So for a tiny bit that you just want out, they're ideal. My other rubber, have I got it to hand? I have one of, I'll put those down a sec. I have one of these Art Teco rubbers, Chinese one, very similar to the Derwent one, but I got this one before the Derwent one, before the Derwent rechargeable one came out. So this obviously you can just plug it into a USB and it recharges, and you can take out the whole nib and put a fine one in, similar fine one into the mono, but this is much better for bigger sections, and because it's rechargeable, that just made far more sense to me, so hence why I have one of those. But I do tend to use this one a lot as well, just because it's really good just for taking out little bits And you can go a bit mad with those battery ones, can't you? Before you know it, you just wanted a tiny bit, but you've removed half the work that you've just spent ages doing. So I tend to use that one if it's just tiny little lines like I wanted to take out there. So this bottom bit of trim is quite a big little bit of trim actually for this dress. And it's a bit more towards us on this little bit, so I'm going to do quite a lot of it in this darker bright orange. It is nice and bright as well. Then on the mid tone, helps if you don't have bits of rubber on your page. Bring that up to there, and then I'm going to go in with the dark section. So, yeah, obviously this is my first kind of colour along. Would be interested if there's a particular book or type of page you'd be interested in watching me colour. Like I say, I'm not going to claim that I'm totally comfortable doing a colour along yet, but I'm going to keep trying to give it a go, although I might be a bit boring. I've got a huge amount to discuss because I'm a teacher. Obviously I can't talk about anything to do with work because that's confidential, and it makes it a bit tricky. I don't have children, so I don't have any highly entertaining tales on that front to discuss. Spend my days with everybody else's children, so a bit of peace and quiet when you get home is quite welcome some days, especially as I teach teenagers. So obviously they're not always the quietest. Well, some teenagers are, that's not totally fair, but we also have some cheeky ones. But yeah, it's not something really I can discuss on here for obvious reasons. I might get a picture of my dog on at some point. Not today, because she's literally zonkoed. She's completely snoring. You might actually hear her snoring at some points. It's when she rolls on her back and she really does make quite a bit of noise. I have she's a mini schnauzer, so she is quite cute. She's getting to the point where she needs a groom though. Her coat grows all the time on a mini schnauzer. They don't lose any hair, which is one of the reasons I got a schnauzer, because my husband's allergic to lots of things. So we got a schnauzer because I was most hopeful that he wouldn't be allergic to her fur, because she doesn't shed at all. But the downside of that is that obviously she needs cutting all the time, so you have to have them groomed, or groom them yourself every kind of 6 to 8 weeks, depends on how quick her coat grows. But okay, so her bodice is starting to come together a little bit now, and I kind of feel like these two could do with being a slightly different colour, even if it's only just slightly different. I'm thinking maybe more yellow. So I haven't used creamy beige, so I'm going to put that back. And I'm going to go with the darker of the yellows. So there's a saffron, a sunflower, and I'm not going for the super light one, and a yellow sapphire. So I've got saffron 725, I've got sunflower 235, and I've got yellow sapphire 231. I'm going to do exactly the same as I've just been doing with the orange, and I think this one does feel like it's close to orange anyway, so hopefully it will just look like a slightly lighter variation. I'm not going to worry too much about these dots because I'll probably fill those in with a bit of metallic gel or something like that later. So I'm not deliberately going in them, but if I go in them, it's not the end of the world. I'll add something to it later. Again, the darkest of the tones I've gone out. It's going on this side. There we go. And then I'm going to try this mid. Now I'm not sure how close these will be. Oh yeah, they're not too bad. Same down here. And then we'll try this super soft one. So yellow sapphire to hopefully finish these little bits of trim off. Yeah, it is a nice pale colour, this. So in order to get the transition from this mid yellow, the sunflower, I am having to build a few layers just so we don't end up with a kind of line where one finishes and the other one starts. But because it is so light, I can kind of be quite free with it because it's not going to ruin any of the other little bits of colour. Yeah, and I quite like that. So now all I've got is these little thin stripes. I don't want something that's too far away from the colour palette we've been using, so see, I could go over these with just some metallic later, but I don't want to lose this kind of shape and form that we've created. So I'm thinking, see, purples are just winking at me as usual. They're probably not that. I'm gonna go pink. I think I'm gonna peel out a dark pink and the lightest. I might even pinch the peony back out. Let me think. Put some of the dark on now. Because this is a super thin line, I am gonna need to sharpen it. So I don't use a lot of fancy sharpeners. I have I always forget the make on this. It's an M&R sharpener, and as you can see, it's got 3 little sections. So you've got a full blade, you've got a tiny blade, and you've got a medium blade. So I like these purely because they offer, you can buy a little pack of, how I got them to hand, you can buy basically a little pack of blades that come with this brand of sharpener, which I helpfully can't see in my drawer now, but you can get new little blades for it, so it just makes financial sense. I might need to put the glasses on, sorry, because some of these are quite fine little lines. So I might later add a little bit of gel pen, metallic or glitter or something over these little bits of trim that we're adding in now anyway, because I do want these to kind of stand out as a little bit of something different. This perhaps isn't the most subtle of garments that I've created here in my colour scheme. She probably should have watercolours, shouldn't she, or something like that. Maybe I don't know. This is what I felt like doing, so this is what I've done. It's my colouring book. Put the colours in I want. You can get over worried about what you're doing with it, can't you? I am an overthinker. I definitely spend too much time sometimes worrying about the most pointless rubbish. Yeah, I think that's probably enough of that, and I need something just a little bit lighter. How dark is that? That might do it, but again, we need a finer, super fine tip on it, because this is a narrow, thin little bit. So this is Flamingo 536. And I just wanted something that's darker than the light pink that we've used here, but dark enough that it shows up as something a little bit different. Okay, yeah, quite happy with that. Now, last little bit is, again, it's personal choice, isn't it? I'm not a great lover of seeing a huge amount of the black lines that obviously I've just been following in a dress, because a dress wouldn't have a black outline. Why do I have to keep doing that with my hand when I have a perfectly good brush to brush it with? Get carried away and forget that it's right there next to me. So what I tend to do with my white is, once I've worked on a little bit, I'll make a decision about whether I'm keeping lines or whether I just want to knock them back a little bit. So white pencils vary definitely in quality and how much opaque colour they will give you. Personally, the 3 I like the most of the time, and they're my go-to. Obviously I use my luminance a lot. I also use Holbein white a lot as well. Holbein white I find is a bit more resistant to other things going on top of it. It does take out, I think it takes a little bit more than the luminance white out. As you just seen, it's taken a little bit out. I think this will take a little bit more out, but then if you want to work over, so if I decided to get the orange a bit stronger up to the line, I find this resists other pencils quite a bit, and sometimes that can be annoying if you've done something and you actually then want to work over it as well. My Holbeins resist a little bit, so I tend to use the luminance more just because of that. The other white that I really do like, and I use quite a bit, is the Derwent Drawing. I think it's Chinese white out of the sets. Again, that's a really quite strong opaque white. It works well with wax or oil coloured pencils. It plays nicely with either of those. But the it's not a lead, is it? But the actual colour section is a much thicker, wider pencil, and obviously I'm using it for lines, so it will sharpen and you can still get a decent point onto it, but I just end up using this one, I suppose. For line work it just makes sense to me to use the thinner pencil because the lines are nice and thin. Obviously, as you can see, because I've got the point so sharp, it does tend to start to be a bit crumbly, and it does start to complain a bit, and it does give off a little bit of crumbs, really. I've hardly really needed to brush this with the Colorya ones that I've been using, but yeah, as soon as you start with this, it does lose quite a bit because it starts to crumble under you, because I'm pressing quite hard to just knock the lines back. You can still see the lines. It's not getting rid of the lines, I wouldn't have said, but it just makes the effect that you've created just a little bit more subtle, and the black's not quite so in your face, I think. So I do tend to, not with every line, but I do tend to do this for, depending what it is that I'm colouring and what kind of effect I want to create. Again, don't need to. So if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Don't need to do anything like this. But yeah, I tend to want to just knock them back a bit, and it's basically the difference between these two that you can see. You can kind of still see the shadow I've put on quite strongly on the camera, I think, but and not so much the black line, but I do just like knocking them back a little bit so they're not quite so much black in your face, because obviously if you had a nice bit of yellow trim across your fancy dress, you wouldn't have a big black line around the edge of it. I can almost hear people going, yes, but it's a colouring book, they have black lines around them. I know, and it's your colouring book. If you want to leave your lines, you leave your lines. It's just what you personally like, isn't it? I personally like removing them a little bit. However annoying and however time consuming at times, I find myself wasting time battling with sometimes pointless black lines that I could have just left with in the beginning, but I'm back to being a control freak and I just can't leave it. I just don't want to see it quite so strongly on my image. And there we go. Now this, I think, is another part of her dress, so I'm not going to take that line out yet till I make some decision about, because I think it's part of this fabric that runs down there. So until I decide what we're doing later with that, I'm not going to change a huge amount of that yet, because I don't know what I'm doing with it yet. Because as I said, I'm not a planner. I'll know when I get there. I really do kind of admire people that can kind of spend the time and work out the combos, and they know we're going to do that bit there and they're going to do this bit there, and I'm so not a planner. Well, if you've watched my videos, you'll know that obviously I've been doing a bit of a colouring journal. I know lots of people do the what's in my colouring bag videos for this coming up month, and I know myself that I can't plan like that. If I did a list of books that I decided I was definitely going to work in, every time I looked at those books I wouldn't want to colour in them, purely because I'd planned it and then it wouldn't feel like it was organic and something I really wanted to do. I'm very much a look through book, see what kind of inspires you today kind of colourist. Today I fancy doing this lovely lady at my Zodiac book. Tomorrow I might not. Tomorrow I might look at it and think, no, enough. I'm just going to also use my white just to even this little section out and just brighten it a little bit, just where I want those highlights to be. Only using it really lightly though now. I don't want to take too much of this colour out. It's more really just making sure it's all kind of even in this section. But yeah, I'm thinking I've kind of nearly done this little bit of her bodice, and what are we coming up to in time? And we're nearly at now. I've nearly been talking for an hour to do this tiny little bit of bodice. Sorry, I have talked quite a while. But yeah, I'm thinking we're pretty much there in terms of her bodice. And I'm thinking I'm just going to do those little dots with a golden Pentel Dual Hybrid. Fish it out of the pencil case. I just want a bit of scrap to make sure it's actually working, because gel pens and me, they have a bit of a love-hate. Even my favourite ones just don't seem to last a huge amount of time. So I'm just going to do the little dots in her bodice and this Pentel. I'm deliberately kind of taking this Pentel outside of the line a little bit, because A, as it dries, it does seem to shrink slightly as the liquid evaporates, and B, I don't want to see, again, I'm back to my black line obsession, sorry, I don't want to see the black lines, so I'm using the Pentel to cover them and get rid. You could obviously do this a bit quicker, but as I said, I am a bit of a control freak. I'm not one of those people that can just do a colouring really quick and fly through it. I am slow, steady, take all week to get it done. And there we go. Let's see if I can show you it differently. Oh, you can kind of see it a little bit there, picking up the Pentel a little bit. And so, yeah, as we're already at a silly amount of time, I'm going to call it a day for this little session on my Zodiac book, my Colorya Zodiac book. I might come back and do a few more on different stages of this particular piece. Be interested to know in what your thoughts are about what you'd like in a colour along, what you'd like to see. Do you want to see the rest of this drawing being built up and finished? Can't honestly tell you what I'm going to do or use or any of those things at the moment, but obviously you've seen the pencils being used a little bit, and a little bit of how I work on my drawings, so that hopefully perhaps my end of the month pieces might make more sense when you see what I've done. So yeah, interested to know your opinions, what perhaps you want to see in a colour along. Do you want to see the rest of this? Is there some other materials you want to see me use that maybe you've seen in other videos? Let me know. Interested to know what you think. Always curious to get some kind of feedback and see what maybe I can do better or not. Maybe you don't want to see any more of it at all. Let me know either way. Whatever you're doing, I hope you're enjoying your colouring. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.